Hey guys, Jamal Chubb Fit here. Thanks so much for watching. If you watch, if you tune in, sorry. Uh, so yeah, um, so a few things I want to address before we get started. There's a few dogs barking in the background. I'm in my backyard, as you can see. A few dogs barking in the background, and also there's a tree service across the yard, and so you probably hear like a chainsaw in the background. There it is. Right, so I'm gonna apologize in advance. Uh, but for this video, I kind of want to talk about the subject of mental health and physical health and how I've found them to be going hand in hand. It's been pretty amazing. But first, I want to say I'm down another pound. So that's 5 pounds. I think total almost 6, very close to 6. But we are, yeah, it's happening a pound a day right now. And I want to show you where I actually am. Like, I want you to see a little bit of a clip of my body and what I got going on here. And as I show it now, I'll show it probably again maybe 30 days from now, or 20 pounds from now, depending. And so maybe every 20 pounds or every 20 to 25 pounds we'll get a new look or something like that to see changes, and hopefully by then I'll have some tech that I can give you a side by side and stuff like that. So, or maybe leave pictures in the comments if I can do that. So but anyway, yeah, mental health and physical health. You know, for me, it has been a journey that I didn't even realize that I was on. I think it takes a big person to look at self-reflection, you know, to look at yourself and say, I need to change physically, I need to change mentally. That's a healthy step. And typically that doesn't happen until something breaks down. For me, there have been these very like private moments in my life where, for, you know, I'd say since 2017, well, 2016 really starting, but 2017 me taking different actions that weren't good, where I've noticed that my life and my health is in a bad place, you know, from a mental perspective and a physical perspective. Now, mental health, it like that doesn't necessarily mean like that you have a dysfunction, schizophrenia, you know, narcissism or anything like that, whatever diagnoses are out there, bipolar, right? But that does mean that you need to find yourself in situations that that cause less stress, and you know, and maybe you do have some of those, you know, some of those bigger things going on, and you know, I'd recommend that you sit down, you get the proper medication, you talk to somebody. But for me, there's been a lot of stress in my life around like marriage, around my health, around work, and coming from the environment that I come from, the way I grew up, dirt poor, no married people in my family, and not really having a ton of access to people who would be honest about their situations too, right? Like, I think transparency is a beautiful thing. And so when you can go to somebody and say, and just tell them the truth, like, hey man, this is where I am, this is what I got going on, this is how my life is, you know, then you're able to kind of talk to people about what's really happening in your world. And you find out that you're not alone, maybe, in the things that you're dealing with, right? And why you're dealing with those things is one thing, right? Like, there's some real trauma in my childhood that's huge, you know, from a mental standpoint, that has affected my physical state, my emotional state, my marriage, and I carry those things with me pretty regularly. And that's everybody. I don't care who you are, you carry your experiences where you go. All right. So I'd say I'm going to probably give a few comparisons here to kind of let you know how those things affect me. And I'll tell you like this. So as a child, so comparison number one, I'll say it's called poor nutrition. Okay. As a child, from a emotional, spiritual perspective, feeding my mind, pity my heart. And from a physical eating perspective, I've had poor nutrition. Um, I've seen a lot of abuse, a lot of physical abuse. My father was in prison uh, since I, was 3, and unfortunately, it was because he was charged with rape. And today he maintains his innocence, but um, the victim is a close family member of mine, and and like, it's just a hard situation. So growing up in that kind of tense environment, where there's now a broken home that I'm in, siblings are distraught with no father, my mother's kind of in disbelief and denial about things. um, there was definitely a precedent set, lots of arguing, lots of physical altercations in my house as a kid. Things that I've now had to work through. We were dirt poor on top of that, right? So being dirt poor, you have to go wherever you can and eat whatever you can. And that leads to eventually overeating, right? So the malnutrition on both parts, not seeing healthy family and having so many negative influences put in. And then the other part of the malnutrition, physically having to eat whatever I can get my hands on, leads to now as an adult, still having an issue with overeating and still dealing with real raw emotions, and broken family issues and things that happen in that context. Now I'm not a person who like has ever hit my wife or anything like that, but I've definitely been unfaithful to our marriage, and I won't go into too many of the details of what that looks like here and now, but it's had an effect, right? It's definitely had an effect, and it might have taken me a while to get there from a mental standpoint, to break down to that point where I felt like I needed to be unfaithful, and I am in a place of taking ownership right now in my life, where that has everything to do with me and nothing, not to say nothing, very little to do with my spouse, right? When you start to take ownership for your behaviors, it's one of those things where it doesn't matter what the circumstance was that caused you to act, you're focusing on the fact that you acted. Now, the circumstance matters in the situation of, what's the root cause here? What's the root cause here? What's the underlying tone? Why am I choosing to continue to overeat food? Why am I choosing to to be unfaithful to a person that I really want to be with and I really, really love, right? So that's a really big deal for me right now. That's kind of where I am in my life, in this season of life. And fortunately, my wife has opted to stay in our marriage and try to work it out. We have 2 kids that we love to death. And so, yeah, it's kind of where we are for a bit. So yeah, malnutrition is where I was going with that. Obviously, I told you I was in this time frame of of me between feeling the way I was feeling in 16, behaving the way I have in 17 and 18, and it all really coming out in 2019, early 2019. Between that time, I ballooned up to 330 pounds, and it's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. And then the stress of that, just allowing me to overeat and control what I can control, is kind of where I've been finding myself at. So the next kind of a mental, and I don't know that I have time to give a ton, but the next kind of a mental thing and physical thing that I've been experiencing is lack of accountability, right? Oh my gosh. Right now I'm in a place where I have my wife going through my phones at will whenever she feels like she wants to. I have friends who can go through my phones and look at, anything, anybody I've been texting, and these are close friends, right? Anybody I've been texting, anybody I've been calling, any website I've searched, just to kind of see a little bit of what's going on with me. I'm the kind of person where I won't do something if I know people see me. And that is the step where Like, that's the accountability piece where even if you're tempted, which my heart hasn't even been tempted to do anything crazy, um, it's, you know, it's one of those things where uh, I've I've put a safeguard in place so that I know that, you know, if I cross that line, someone's going to see me. Same thing with accountability. I have people right now in my world uh, who, when it comes to weight loss, who are saying, "Hey, man, you said," and including you guys that watch this, if you're tuning in, if you watch, uh, who says, "You said, hey, you're going to lose this weight, and I'm gonna hold you to it. Hey, you said you're gonna in November on the 23rd, you're gonna run um, the Spartan race with us. That's what you said." So, and again, accountability is everything, man. Because when you can be accountable for what you do, uh, and and for who you are and how you behave, it's a game changer. So accountability physically and mentally is huge. Um, the next thing I would say, and this is probably my last one, then I'm gonna show you what my physical body is looking like right now. Uh, but the next thing I would say that is really a game changer for me um, is the way how do I say this? The next thing that's really a game changer, I'd say, is the way um, I choose to um, create a routine, right? I think success is a lot of you creating an environment. So creating an environment is everything. And so what I mean by that, for example, from a mental standpoint, in the place I'm in right now, I've created an environment where I'm reading healthy books. Right now, the book I'm reading is Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I am, I read my Bible. I read, I have a couple other books on the docket to get read, but I'm reading right now. I'm reading every day. Uh, Also, the environment of getting to talk to you guys is a healthy thing for me, paired with any guys or friends that I sit with, that I kind of talk about the things I'm going through right now. Also, strategically creating an environment where uh, I am able to get to the gym at ease, which is really cool. So, I get up early enough. I've invested in some gym memberships that, one is pretty close to my house. No excuse for me not to be able to find some sort of way to get to the gym and do my, 25 minutes of cardio that day. Um, and, making sure I get the right groceries in my house so that I can eat the proper foods. So there's no excuse for me to make sure, or no excuse for me to not have eaten the proper diet that day, because I should have had everything available to me to be able to eat that diet. Um, so I've created an environment for myself that has really helped me succeed and move forward. In the context of what I'm talking about right now, where I've, kind of said, hey, yeah, I've been unfaithful to my marriage. And what that looks like in that context is I've created an environment for me to, make sure I'm thriving. There's the 5 Love Languages book that I'm reading. Also, one thing that really got me into the realm of being unfaithful is looking at porn. I had a hardcore porn addiction. Can't believe I'm saying that on a camera. And there will probably be tons of questions from people. Well, how much were you watching, or what exactly do you mean by unfaithful? I'd rather not qualify that for any of you, especially if you find yourself in a similar situation. Just because when you qualify what you've done to people, or quantify it and say, okay, this is what it looked like, and maybe I'll share some snippets of it, but the details I don't think people need to know, because then you start to weigh your good and your bad. Oh, well, you did this, but this didn't happen, or you did this, and this is horrible. I don't think that this should be an environment for anyone where anyone is weighing the good and the bad of a situation. I think it should be a, oh man, let's celebrate you getting healthy kind of a thing. And so, you know, for me, there's nothing that's more sobering than you waking up one morning and your wife saying, hey, I'm taking your kids and we're leaving because things are not, this is not who you started as, but this is who you've chosen to be, and I can't be around that, right? So, you know, it's a humbling thing to create an environment where I can succeed with so much accountability, getting the right nutrition. It's a game changer. So I want to encourage you to do that with your physical health and maybe even your mental health. Get some accountability. Create the right. Get some nutrition, good nutrition. Get the right things going in. Create some accountability where you have people in your world who can see what you're doing and encourage you in what you're doing and champion what you're doing. Also, you know, just and create an environment where, hey, you can do it, right? It's easier. Not saying this is easy, because none of this stuff is easy, but you know, if you do what you can do right now, it'll change the game for you. So that's a game changer. But anyhow, again, I lost another pound, so I'm 5 pounds down. We're 5 days in, and it's working great. If you want to know how I've gotten to that, you know, go ahead and check out the previous video. There's 3 techniques that I'm using for weight loss specifically that are leading me to lose a pound a day. I'd love for you to check out that video. And, you know, hope you guys stay physically and, you know, stay physically engaged and doing the steps of everything that you're doing. And I'll show you now what it looks like. Back up for a second. Probably to here. Okay, I don't know. I'm tall. I don't know that you can see that. So here. I'm in my backyard, so it's fine. I know I'm outside, but this is kind of what I'm dealing with right now from a body perspective. Okay, you see all that? It's not pretty. I'm not excited about it, but I'm gonna change it, and I'm changing it every day. I'm changing it all. So 1 pound a day. Chup Fit. Thanks for watching. You guys are great.